Okay, so welcome everybody to the faculty Q&A all about the in-person MBA program. My name is Rebecca Mueller. I am the Assistant Director of Recruitment. I'm also the lead recruiter for any questions admissions-based for the MBA. But really, we're here to talk all about talk with our faculty director, Professor Ian Tarrant. So again, this session is really intended for students that are interested in the residential MBA program. And really a majority of the details that we're going to be covering in today's session are related to that program specifically. Now, many of you have submitted questions during the registration process, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do so. And we will do our best to cover all of those questions in today's session, as well as open up questions if there's anything else that you think of throughout the presentation or throughout the Q&A. Now, if you are specifically interested in another program that we offer at the university, I will add my email into the chat if you want to connect today after that. So again, really anything in the School of Management I can assist you with. So let me just plug my email into the chat for you here. And then before I ask Ian a bunch of questions that you guys have submitted, I am going to cover just some of the general questions that we get. So hopefully that will help answer some of those general questions. So the first thing I would like to just add in the chat for you guys is the application instructions as well as application deadlines. We've got a lot of questions about that. Please utilize that website. Kind of talks to you exactly about what it is that you need for the application process. The 2024 application is closed as classes are already beginning for that and orientation and things, but 2025 applications are open. When it comes to just general information on the UBMBA, I'm definitely going to encourage you to watch our program overview. I go into about a half-hour presentation, really detailed descriptions about the admissions process, the benefits of the program, some of the professors that you may see in your classes. So please refer to that program overview if you haven't viewed that yet. And then just some of the questions that we are asked on a pretty frequent basis. The first one is about the GMAT and GRE. Is that something that we require? The School of Management does not require GMAT or GRE. We are test optional. So you have that option if you want to use it to support your application, but you're not required to do so. However, if you do choose to submit a score, it may improve your chance of being admitted, as well as potentially increase your opportunity for a merit-based scholarship. But it's not going to guarantee anything, but it can help boost an application. In terms of the application, we're often asked, is the application fee waived? Unfortunately, we do not waive application fees. So the application fee is $100. There's a couple categorical expectations or exceptions rather that the university does grant, but they're very few and far between. If you qualify for those, you typically know in advance. But again, feel free to email me if you want more detailed information on that. When it comes to how long the program is, it is a full 2-year program. Classes typically begin at the end of August, but we do have an orientation that begins prior to that. So full-time MBA students typically come to campus, I think it's a week or two before classes actually begin. Some of you had specific questions on the dual degree programs or collaborative degrees. So one question that we received is, can you run this MBA program concurrently with a Master of Architecture program at UB? The answer is yes, you can. For that, I'm going to refer you to take a look at our MBA and Master of Architecture overview. That really goes into detail with myself and then my colleague, Kevin Donovan, who runs the Master of Architecture program. Another question we got was about the collaborative MBA MPH program. I'm going to do the same thing here and just put that into the chat for you as well. So you feel free to do that. So yeah, we definitely have combined collaborative degree programs. I'd be more than happy to walk you through the details of those at a later time. When it comes to departmental funding, this is definitely a question that we get offered or get asked a lot. Just wanting to know if we give funding to admitted MBA students, how much we give. Again, I'm going to refer you over to our Funding Your Degree website, but I am also going to go into detail with you about this as well. So when it comes to the university, we really want to help to enhance the University of Buffalo's already competitive tuition. So we do award things like scholarships, fellowships, and assistantships for outstanding, highly motivated students. All awards are merit-based and may be funded for full or partial tuition, and all applicants are considered for scholarships that fall underneath the School of Management umbrella during the admissions process. So there's no additional application for scholarship consideration. You are considered for that just by applying. Now, oftentimes that the scholarships are not delivered or determined until sometime after February. So oftentimes you can get an admissions decision first, and then if you were to receive a scholarship, you may find out at a later date. When it comes to assistantships, we're also asked about this. So incoming and current MBAs are also welcome to seek out graduate student teaching as well as research assistantships. Each one is offered during every semester in a competitive process to a select number of qualified full-time students. So these students tend to assist with school or university administration, teach or undertake research with faculty members. And although responsibilities are going to vary by assignment, assistants generally work 20 hours per week, and graduate and teaching assistants do receive a stipend as well as a tuition scholarship. So how this works is if you're admitted into the program, you would gain access to our online portals that allow you to explore and apply for assistantships campus-wide. So assistantships are actually not awarded through the admissions process. It's a completely separate process that you'll get access to and you can apply for if you've been admitted to the university. But those were some of just the main questions that we got that I wanted to cover before we ask some more of the detailed questions of Professor Tarrant. So I am going to start switching gears and ask him some questions. If you have any questions while we're doing the Q&A, please feel free to put them into the chat, and we will address them after we get through some of the Q&A. But Professor Tarrant, I would like to ask you some questions. The first one I have is, can you talk a little bit about if there are course prerequisites or if there's work experience required? Sometimes we're getting asked, can I enroll or can I apply to the MBA without a business background? So can you just provide some information on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get started with that, just to give you a little information about myself, my name is Ian Tarrant. I am a professor in the accounting department, but I work primarily with the MBA programs. I've been here for about 8 years, and I am the director for both the full-time and the online programs. And so if there are questions that you have, please feel free to reach out to Rebecca or me, and we can hopefully get those questions answered for you. So with that said, there is no one thing that we're looking for when we're looking at applications. And so we're just looking for a broad, diverse group of individuals who can make up our student population. And so to answer some of those questions, I can give you some insights into what our fall 2024 starting class looks like. So we don't require any sort of prerequisite knowledge. There's nothing that you need to have in hand before you start your first class this semester. It would be on August 26th. About 1/3 of our students come from a business background, so they have a business undergraduate degree, or maybe they've already been enrolled in some other business programs. Actually, more than any other background, we have individuals with science and engineering and technology backgrounds who enter the program. So for this fall, about 45% of the students come from some engineering or science background. And then the remaining 1/3 or so, or maybe 25%, come from something else entirely unrelated to business or science and technology. And so we have some liberal arts students starting. We have a dance student actually joining the program. And so we get students from everywhere, and we're really looking for a diverse group of students because I think that's what really makes our program special. And so we offer a transformative educational experience, not just for people who already have business backgrounds, but for people who might want to pivot from wherever they currently are and move in that direction. And so, again, there's no real prerequisite knowledge. We're just looking for strong applications, and that can look different for each person. So somebody might have strong work experience, not necessarily in business, and that's okay. Some people might have a really strong educational background, and that's great too. We're just looking for individual strengths and what you can bring to the table. So what's important for you when applying is trying to let us know what you offer and you can help the program with, and what you're looking to get out of it in the essay part of the application. So we know a little bit more about you. That's where we get to know you as an individual, in addition to the statistics that we get from your application.
So another question that we get in terms of, what the program is it STEM eligible? So for our international students who may be on the call, yes, the program is STEM designated, which does provide you with that additional 24 months of OPT. Now, we also get questions with regards to with the STEM MBA, how does that work? Is there a specific concentration that they need to choose that's some designated? And kind of what does their employment outcome look like? So when it comes to employment outcomes, I am going to refer you guys over to look at the Career Resource Center because they have all of the information there. But in terms of concentrations, now, Ian, my understanding is that they work with their academic advisor to determine what concentrations are some eligible. Do you have any additional information on that?
Sure. So it turns out, okay, so we have both a traditional MBA program and a STEM MBA program. They run in parallel with each other. So you can choose to enroll in either one of them, and you can actually switch between them. So if you entered the program as a non-STEM student and then decided while you were in it, you wanted to pursue the STEM designation, you could make the switch in it. In the first year of the program, everybody takes the same core courses. And so it's 27 credit hours across a variety of different business topics. And so, like, for instance, I teach the financial accounting course in the very first semester of the program. And then there are other courses. Now, some of those courses do qualify as STEM classes, and so they would work towards the STEM designation. Where the STEM comes into play is actually in your second year in the program. So when you start taking electives, and the concentrations themselves are not STEM designated. What you have to do is look at the list of approved classes, and then you sort of compile those classes to meet the minimum requirements for the STEM designation. A lot of the classes you're going to find are in finance or in data analytics. And so those concentrations, while themselves are not STEM designated, the courses within them do contribute towards the STEM designation. And so it's sort of a subtle difference that it's the courses that matter, not necessarily the concentration. And it turns out you can go into a concentration that you wouldn't typically think of as being STEM designated, like marketing. But if you take the right courses, you can make it a STEM, a concentration essentially. And so really it's more about the courses you take rather than the concentrations. And you can cobble together what you need just depending on what your interests are.
Excellent. Thank you, Ian. That really helps explain that a lot. Understanding that there's two different types of MBA, the STEM, the non-STEM, the concentration piece. So thank you very much for diving into that so that we could understand that at a deeper level. Can you talk a little bit about what you would say the benefits of the MBA program are and what you think differentiates our MBA program from others?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the MBA, like I mentioned before, it's set up to be a transformative educational experience for the students who enter it. And so what we frequently see with students who come into the program are these are individuals who are looking to make a fairly big pivot in their career trajectory. And so they're looking to move from maybe they've been stuck in lower level positions in their company and they want to make some sort of move to move up in the ranks. And so they might want to become a manager or an upper level executive. Or we have people who are trying to switch careers altogether. And so they might want to pivot from something in the sciences or in the engineering realm and move into a more managerial role. It might be that they still work in those industries, but they want to take the next step up into an executive level position. And so this program is designed to facilitate that sort of educational experience. What we do at UB that I think differentiates us from other MBA programs, well, I think there's a couple different things. One thing you get here is a really world-class faculty. Now that sort of feels like patting myself on the back because I'm part of the faculty, but there's a ton of individuals that you're going to work with that are experts in their given field. We also have a very rich and constantly evolving curriculum. And so we look at what the market is interested in for our graduates, and we try and adjust our curriculum to meet those expectations from employers. And so we, for instance, introduced a new course in our core curriculum this past spring that talked about ethics in management. And it was actually incredibly well received, and it was profiled by the Harvard Business Review. I think Rebecca has a link so you can take a look at that article. So we have a really innovative curriculum. We also have a very diverse and broad curriculum. And so there are several different areas that you can concentrate in. So there are areas in international management, in marketing, in data analytics, in healthcare management. You don't have to concentrate those. So you can go into your second year when you take your electives and you can just sort of sample everything. You can pick and choose and try and develop your what you're interested in that second year. And so it's really up to you. And so there's a lot of flexibility in our curriculum. One of the biggest assets of our program too is an element that we call corporate champions. And so In the first, actually before you start, so Rebecca mentioned that there's a week-long orientation that is in the week prior to the semester beginning, which is actually coming up quite quickly here. And during that week, we form groups. And so we place all of the students into teams, and then those students work in the same teams throughout their first year in the program. So in each core course, they will work in the same teams. That helps just facilitate some of the time management across all the students. So they're working with the same people and the schedules sort of align that way. But what it really does is it gives you a lot of insight into working in a team, which is what's going to happen once you reach the professional world. And so we give you a lot of resources too to be successful in those teams. So we have a mentorship program. We have courses that are designed to help you understand team dynamics and that sort of thing. But the Corporate Champions itself, that's sort of tied with those groups, and we immediately pair you up with a local organization that recruits our students heavily. And then you are asked to do things like interview their upper level executive management team. You do a site visit for that particular organization. You work with them in the first 7 weeks of the semester to facilitate a sort of a case competition. And then we actually award a cup based on the outcome of the Corporate Champions program at the end of the first 7 weeks of the semester. So that's a fairly innovative program that you're not going to see in other MBA programs. We also have a lot of resources. We have an award-winning career resource center that allows you to sort of access the job market in a very defined manner. We hook you up with somebody who is a career expert in the field that you might be interested in working in once you graduate. And they do things like coach you on how to best present yourself in interviews. You can do practice interviews. They teach you how to sell yourself. And so you know what you're talking about when you interview with these potential employers for both internships and full-time positions. We have a global programs initiative at our school. And so there are what are effectively study abroad opportunities for you. And so you can link together with, or rather we have programs linked together with other schools all over the country. So we have relationships in Singapore, across Africa, in Europe, and we can work with organizations in those countries. So you get a global perspective in addition to what's happening in the Buffalo area through your Corporate Champions project. And so I think there's a lot of things that differentiate UB from other schools. The other nice thing about UB is that we are not a giant school. And so there's a fairly low faculty to student ratio. And so you will get to know your faculty very well. And they are a wealth of resources and knowledge that you can take advantage of. They all have professional and personal networks that you can take advantage of as well. And so I think UB offers a lot of the resources that a really elite university does, but we also have the close-knit community of a smaller school that's not quite as large as some of the big elite universities.
And kind of going off of that, we have some questions about, what does a UB MBA class look like? Are they taught as simulations or case studies or lectures? What can they expect in some of these classes? I know that each one can be a little different.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So each class is a little bit different, and it's determined by the faculty who is an expert in their particular area. So I teach financial accounting. It's one of the first classes that you'll take, and a lot of what you learn in accounting is not necessarily accounting itself, but it's just the language of business. And so there is a fair amount of lecture in that class so that people understand how corporations are formed, what the goals are, what the expectations are, what the terminology is that you're going to hear throughout the program. I do some case studies in my class. I don't do any simulations, but there are other classes that do. And there are other classes that are not necessarily lecture-based. They are more discussion-based or even debate-based. And so it really just depends on the content of the course and the faculty who's teaching it, how they want to structure it. But you're going to see all of those things. You're going to see lectures, you're going to see simulations, you're going to see case studies, you're going to see debates. It's just a whole menu of different educational offerings that you're going to get. But again, it just depends on what the course is and the faculty who's teaching it.
Great. So our next question talks a little bit about, and you mentioned this with Corporate Champions, but a little bit about professional development that's offered in addition to the coursework. Now, I know from the admissions perspective, there's a bunch of different action learning opportunities they can take advantage of. But are there any like professional development things that you think are specifically really important for our audience to know about?
Yeah. So At the program level, we offer a wide variety of different resources to help you develop both personally and professionally. So one of the very first things you're going to do is get linked up through the Corporate Champions Project with a local firm that recruits heavily from our student population. And so through that, you can network and you can interview their upper level management and executive leadership team. We also have different sessions throughout your program. So for instance, there's a career development and sort of a career I don't want to call it orientation, but there's what we call it is MBA Advantage, and it's all centered about on careers in the beginning of the spring semester. And so there are various points in time where at a program level we come together and we try and give you resources that allow you to be successful in different aspects of your educational journey. There's also a club system here, and so there's social support too. There's a club called the Graduate Management Association, and they organize volunteering opportunities. They organize social events for the students. One of the fun things they do is actually at the very end of your first year, they throw what is effectively a prom. And so that's a big social event for the students. It's a lot of fun. They give out awards and that sort of thing. And then there's also the professional resources that you can get from talking and connecting with your faculty as well. And so there's a lot of different professional development that we offer, and it's offered at both the program level, at a club level, at a faculty level. And so one way or another, you should be able to get whatever it is that you need to be successful in the program, and then ultimately, achieve whatever your desired employment outcome is once you finish our curriculum after about 2 years.
And speaking about, finishing up the curriculum, starting to go out into the workforce, Novell has a question that actually correlates with our next question, which talks a little bit about, what types of roles our students are getting after they receive an MBA. Novell's specific question in the chat was more about, any insights on the industries, positions, and locations where recent graduates typically find employment, because I know they go everywhere and they do a lot of different things. It's a really versatile degree that you can have.
Right, yeah. And so you'll also find a lot of this information on the Career Resource Center's website, which I believe there's a link to in the chat already. I will say that a fair amount of our graduates stay in the New York area. So either in the Western New York area, in Buffalo and the surrounding areas like Rochester and that, or they work in New York City. So I would say a majority of the students that we have will graduate and work in New York in some capacity. Like Rebecca mentioned, we have students who do all sorts of different things. They go into all sorts of unique industries. And so we have placed individuals at corporations like Google and Apple. We have students who work in consulting and they might go to Deloitte or PwC or Accenture. We have students who are very interested in a particular industry when they start the program. And so their entire goal is to be able to access that industry once they graduate. And so we have placed students with organizations like United Airlines in Chicago because that person was really interested in that particular industry. And so we have connections across the country, across the globe, in pretty much every industry. And so if you have an interest, we can likely find you and hook you up with a person who is currently living the life that you might want to lead, and they can give you some advice on what to do and what they're looking for when they recruit our students from that particular into that particular industry.
Excellent. And another thing that I would encourage you guys to consider if you're looking to talk to, either current students or alumni, we do have a group of ambassadors who are more than happy to kind of share their experiences with you. And this also goes to a question that we have in the chat about, what's the best course of the MBA. I think that's really relative based on the student. So please feel free to reach out to our students via Unibuddy, ask them what their favorite class was, ask them what their plan is for after graduation. There are alumni that are on there as well. So feel free to ask them some questions that way if you're interested in hearing more about that. Another question in the chat, what are the criteria for getting a merit-based full funded scholarship? Again, they're merit-based. So this is something that everyone who applies will be considered for. There's not, specific criteria necessarily. It is going to be merit-based. So I can't give you the secret formula for how to get a fully funded scholarship. The best thing to do is really just put your best foot forward with your application to be considered for those scholarships. But if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. We have plenty of time. So how do we get an application fee waiver? We actually do not give application fee waivers, unfortunately. I mentioned earlier on there are some categorical exceptions by the university, but a lot of that has to depend on, if you were, for example, an EOP student, HEOP, if you were a C-STEP, McNair, if you are a U.S. veteran or spouse of a U.S. veteran. There's a lot of, well, there's not a lot, but there's some certain criteria for that. But in general, no, we do not give application fee waivers. You guys can also take yourself off of mute as well. If you would like to ask a question verbally, that's absolutely acceptable. Well, one question that we got submitted that I haven't addressed yet is about PhD programming. So for PhDs, I'll put the link into the chat here. You can feel free to email me if you're looking for, the contact for the specific PhD program that you're looking for. That's not something that I myself personally advise on. We do refer you to the faculty advisor for that, but I'm more than happy to kind of get you the information that you may need if you're interested in some of that general information. So, but we do offer, the MBA program. We offer a variety of different MS programs and PhD programming. Sure, the application fee is $100 for every application in our school. PhD might be different. I'm not positive on that one. This is a great question. So are the dual MBA degrees or the dual MBA programs also STEM designated? No, they are not. The only STEM designated program that we have is the MBA program itself. When you talk about combining that with like the architecture program or like MPH, those are not STEM eligible. So just make sure that you're aware of that when you're applying to those programs. And when you're applying to the dual or collaborative programs, you do need to apply to each school separately and get the decisions. You need to be admitted into both programs in order to go throughout that process. And let me know if you are going to be doing that so that we can work with our counterparts in the other schools on campus. Okay, we'll stay on for a couple more minutes if you guys don't have any more questions. So you are welcome to log off at any point in time. Again, this whole presentation has been recorded. So I will send this out to you guys in about a week. I'll also include all of the links that I put in the chat for you as well, because I did a lot of that for you too. So you'll not miss out on anything that we've covered so far. Okay. Well, I think that being said, we'll just kind of wrap it up. The applications are open. If you are interested in getting a scholarship, our primary priority deadline for scholarship consideration is January 15th. So I do encourage you to get your applications in sooner rather than later. But that being said, I am going to stop the recording here. We got a couple other questions in the chat, but that's more so regarding MS programs. So I'll cover that offline. So thank you everyone for attending, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions. Thank you so much.